Venom, Carnage, spoilers head. The film starts in 1996, at St. Estes Reform School in California. Cletus, a chronic serial killer, is detained with his girlfriend, Frances. She has superpowers, and when he asks what the doctor said to her, she adds that the changes and powers are developing, and she's concerned they'll move her to another area, where others are like her. Also, she was right to be stressed. At that point, regardless of Cletus' fury, the guards carry Frances away. On the way, she utilizes her ability to control sound to battle the guard. However, a guard figures out how to shoot her. She shows up at the emergency clinic, and is welcomed at her new home. Back at the present, Frances is secured in Ravencroft, a criminally insane mental institution, and a few specialists come in to take care of her with shields, so she doesn't go after them with her superpowers. Consistently, it appears, they give her the newspaper where she learns about her boyfriend Cletus, who is in jail, and it is obscure whether he will be condemned to death. In the meantime, Eddie, the protagonist, keeps on functioning as a journalist, and we discover that Cletus wishes to talk with him, to find where the remainder of the remaining bodies are buried. The detective recommends that he go, and Venom at first wants to eat the detective. Eddie figures out how to keep him in the latrine. He then conversed with the manager and accepts the assignment. He goes to see Cletus in San Quentin jail. There, Cletus makes sense of that all he needs is to make an impression on his admirers, and in return, he'll offer him his biography. Since he'll uncover every one of his privileged insights, Eddie's career as a journalist will be re-established. Cletus lets him know the phrasing he wants in the first page, that distant cathedral is all I see, fracture angel, the other part of me. Eddie concurs and puts it on the front page of the paper, and his girlfriend Frances reads it. Before they leave, Venom tells Eddie to see Cletus' drawings on the wall. Cletus urges him not to forget him, and Eddie leaves. Back at home, Eddie outlines Cletus' drawings, yet he doesn't have the foggiest idea about what they mean. Be that as it may, Venom educates him to focus, and in the wake of perusing up a couple of things in the web, they decide one of the drawings is where the victims' bodies are buried. Then the police reveal a few bodies, and start questioning Eddie, in light of the fact that he's the main individual Cletus converses with. The detective becomes enraged, since the request was led by a journalist as opposed to the police. What's more, the police affirms capital punishment for Cletus, so both he and Frances are enraged. Venom tells him later around evening time that they ought to begin going out and catching criminals, so he can eat them. He additionally says he wants to be free, that he's hungry, and he would rather not eat the chickens since they've turned into his buddies. At a certain point, they understand their relationship is doomed, and go looking for food, yet Mrs. Chen is out of chocolates, so despite the fact that Venom needs to eat human brains, Eddie brings him to eat chickens. As they see a burglar, Venom goes to eat him, however Eddie rejects, and winds up tossing him in the trash. Eddie's ex, and calls him. She lets him know that she really needed a chance to deal with all that happened before, and she eventually inquires as to whether they can meet to talk. He concurs, and Venom is excited. They go to a restaurant the following evening, however the discussion becomes awkward. They chat about stuff that nobody thinks about, and she lets him know that she needed to meet and talk with him because she's getting married. She's getting married to her new boyfriend Dan, and keeping in mind that Eddie communicates his happiness for her, Venom is more sadder than ever. Following that, she thinks that he is being odd and finds out if Venom is still inside him, however he claims no and that he died earlier. After talking and letting him know that she isn't prepared for commitment, she understands that Venom is still inside her ex, so she tells Venom to take care of Eddie, and they leave in tears. They ride around on a motorcycle for some time, and Venom guarantees Eddie not to stress, since he'll get him out of this one. A little Venom unwinds by doing what he specializes in, cooking for Eddie. He snatches the mail and gets a letter from Cletus. There, he welcomes him to watch his execution and his last minutes on Earth. He additionally lets him know that he is to be faulted for Cletus' demise. But in the event that he wasn't revived, he couldn't have ever killed his grandma, mother and dog, and consequently he couldn't have ever been beaten by his father and shipped off reform school, where he met his girlfriend. Eddie and Venom visit Cletus in prison following day. Eddie records the meeting, and Cletus talks with him about consequences of our activities. He lets him know that they are something the same, and that they are both related. When inquired as to whether he has any wishes before he passes on, Cletus wants Eddie to spend the remainder of his life alone, very much like him. There, he begins letting him know things to infuriate Venom, until he at long last gets the symbiote to go after him, and Cletus bites him, and Eddie learns he doesn't have blood inside him. Eddie and Venom argue, and Venom lets him know that all that he has achieved is a direct result of him. However, they wind up battling, and Venom wants to kick him out of the house by tossing the entirety of his things. At long last, Venom leaves and enters the body of one more man in the road, and Eddie is free, yet he starts to hear commotions, and notification that Venom has broken his motorcycle. Lastly, Venom moves into the body of a lady riding a bicycle. The following day is Cletus sentenced to death. He says his last words, prior to being infused with the deadly dose, yet something uncommon starts to occur. Carnage arises and kills the first cop. From that point onward, he goes looking for the mayor, killing numerous innocent individuals simultaneously. At last, Cletus escapes with his new symbiote, Carnage, inside him. Eddie is now enjoying his existence without Venom. The next day, he starts to remodel his loft, and frees the chickens. In the interim, Venom goes around the city. Around evening time, quietly, Eddie sees on television that serial killer Cletus has gotten away. The detective that shows up and starts to suspect Eddie. He lets him know he is clueless, and the detective doesn't tell him anything and leaves. Following that, he starts paying attention to the recording of the last time he saw Cletus, yet he doesn't understand anything. In the meantime, Venom proceeds with his quest for a fitting body, yet en route, an innocent person winds up dead. Venom then, at that point, moves into the body of another man, who is at a costume party. This Venom passes unseen, and everybody loves the outfit. In the meantime, Cletus and Carnage show up in the city, and murders another innocent individual. Following that, Cletus gets a vehicle, starts speaking with his symbiote, and they consent to help one another, in light of the fact that Carnage wants to kill Venom, and Cletus needs to track down his girlfriend. They fling a truck over the bridge on the way, for reasons unknown. Eddie proceeds with his examination and visits the reform school from prior. Then he calls the detective in the wake of seeing couples' initials on a tree. He asks him if he knows a lady with the initials FB, and he lets him know her name, yet he likewise confesses to killing her quite a while back. Somewhere else, Cletus enters a structure and kills another person. He goes on the web, and finds that Frances is alive. She is detained in her cell, while the doctor advises her that her boyfriend has escaped, however will not be unable to track down her in this location, or maybe, he will, on the grounds that Cletus shows up at that moment. Cletus introduces her to Carnage, and together they crush the nail and escape, killing 6 guards simultaneously. They escape in a vehicle, until Carnage starts going after the police. Frances utilizes her powers to crush a helicopter, however Carnage is delicate to sound, and cautions her to avoid using it once more. Following that, Venom almost dies while asking a Chinese woman for chocolate. A detective questions Eddie about why strange things frequently occur around him, and he makes reference to that the other patients in the emergency clinic profess to have seen a beast. Eddie realizes Cletus bit his palm in the jail, and starts to comprehend everything. He calls his ex, and illuminates her that the serial killer is likewise concealing an alien inside, and that everybody should now track down Venom. She goes to the Chinese market to search for Venom, and tracks him down inside Mrs. Chen. So she winds up persuading him, and together they attempt to break out Eddie. In the meantime, Cletus torches the reform school, and presently they're en route to track down the detective, Venom and Eddie. Eddie's ex enters with Venom inside her, and hauls Eddie out of the police station. On the way, Venom and Eddie repair their bond indeed. The detective happen upon Carnage and Cletus and they steal him to take him to Frances. They generally go searching for her, when Frances goes into Eddie's room, and sees Anne's image with the wedding ring. Inevitably, Frances finds them, she cripples Anne's fiancé, and lets him know that Cletus needs to exchange Eddie's head for hers, so she captures Annie as well. Dan then calls Eddie, and informs him that they have kidnapped Anne, and are en route to the wedding. In particular, it's the wedding of Cletus and Francis, who stole a priest. Eddie shows up with Venom, and apparently they are going to fight. However, Venom gets scared, since Carnage is excessively strong. Eddie ultimately persuades Venom, and the unavoidable battle between the aliens starts. Francis is going to kill the detective, when Carnage hinders to caution her to quit shouting, and he likewise utilizes the chance to eat the priest for not a great reason. In the interim, the detective escapes, and Francis embarks to track him down, as the others keep on battling. Cletus detests Eddie in light of the fact that, as a journalist, he never uncovered the justification behind his evil, and he likewise never discussed when he was a boy, and was abused by his family. As they keep on battling, Dan sets Carnage ablaze, and he pursues Dan down, nearly killing him, until Venom rings the bell, which stops the evil. Carnage and Venom keep on battling, however Carnage is a lot more stronger. He jumps to the top, and chokes Francis, infuriating Cletus. Venom comes up and stabs Carnage, seeing the strife among him and Cletus. This irritates Carnage considerably more, and he gradually destroys Venom, however not prior to guaranteeing Anne's well-being with Dan. Venom sees Francis, and lets her tumble to utter a sound, weaning Carnage. Carnage and Cletus are then eaten up by Venom. The detective is alive, yet his eye color is unusual. Eddie and Venom in the end escape, since they are wanted by the police. At last, they are still friends on the run, and they travel to an ocean side, as Venom has mentioned. We see Eddie sitting in front of the television, where Toxin expresses that everybody has stand last, and that he has 80 billion light years of information on different universes. However, at that point something weird occurs, and they're moved to another location, where they watch J. Jonah James, discussing Spider-Man's revealed identity as Peter Parker on television. Toxin licks the screen. Thank you for watching.